Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. If it's Monday, it must be Pablo Torre. Pablo, welcome.
Jen, every time I come on to this fine program, we joke that, of course, there's more just truly bat bleep crazy stuff due for us to discuss. And I fear the bat bleep has consumed me over the last weekend. So good to be back.
Yes, we have, in the spirit of the holiday, an extra serving of crazy today. So let's talk about Bill Belichick's girlfriend. What is she upset about, and why is she suing you?
I should say that I'm not entirely clear on why it is that Jordan Hudson, who of course I've covered and extensively covered on my show, Pablo Torre Finds Out, over the past year. I'm not totally sure why she has now said that on Instagram, per her latest caption, she is suing me. I also have not yet received anything that officially says that I am being sued.
Got
So I
it.
should clarify that. I look forward to hearing from her in any official legal capacity that she wants to pursue. I frankly welcome that conversation, and I also look forward to hearing why I am specifically being sued, allegedly. Um, your guess for the time being is also a worthwhile one, Jen, but maybe, I don't know, I don't want to speculate. It just could be any number of things, I guess, but not quite sure.
Well, the great thing about lawsuits, as you know, and there are not that many great things about them, is that you get something called discovery. Meaning you get to put the person under oath and you get to ask questions and you get to find all kinds of witnesses. So if you are sued, let's hope you don't because it's a hassle. What are the kinds of questions you think you would want your attorney to ask her in a deposition?
Oh, that's a good question. It's such a good question that I don't think I'm going to answer it. But I will say that I mean, here's the fun part about what my curiosities are. Because we've done, I believe, three episodes about Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson, you can kind of tell where my curiosities have led me. And
Yes.
I will also point out that insofar as that might be a roadmap for any attorney out there who wants to consider suing me, Pablo Torre Finds Out is the name of the show. It's on YouTube, it's on Apple Podcasts and all other podcast platforms. You can go check it out. Furthermore, as well as a Substack, by the way, but furthermore, I would say that at every point in our reporting, something that we have been doing, of course, because we do this through actual journalism, is request comment in
Yes.
advance with detailed questions ahead of time of both University of North Carolina and Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson herself. And I just want to clarify that at no point in the reporting of these episodes has there been anything like a threat to sue me or even to correct the record as
Right.
a factual concern beyond Carolina requesting at the outset of this whole saga that I clarify that Jordan Hudson, in fact, was welcome at the football building after I reported that she was no longer welcome and provided all of the reporting around that. And so that's about all I can think of when it comes to just like what was actually pushed back on at the time when presented with the facts that I was reporting. Um, Short of that, again, I will answer your question, which is again a very good one this way. Um, there is no shortage of questions that I would want to ask, and all of them I think would be of great public interest.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you, how is the football team going? And after all, this is about ultimately
Ah,
a football
yes.
team for which Bill Belichick is being paid a small fortune to turn into a winning operation. What is going on? It seems to be going from bad to worse to really miserable.
Yeah, they just lost to Duke over the weekend. I believe they're 4-7 as we are speaking right now. They are effectively eliminated from bowl contention, although there's an outside chance, a vanishingly small chance that maybe they can still sneak in with that kind of a losing record. But if you slept through the whole North Carolina season, I will say you didn't really miss a ton. There were three massive blowouts to teams that should not have been massive blowouts, and the rest of it was pretty uninspiring. And that's not due to anything off the field, of course. Off the field, it was fascinating and electrifying in terms of just the
Yes,
soap opera part of it. But in terms of what did you get when you made Bill Belichick the highest paid public employee in the state of North Carolina at $10 million a year, and hired Mike Lombardi to be the highest paid general manager in college football at one and a half, I believe, $1 million a year. You didn't really get anything close to that value. I dare say you could have gone 4-7 and saved a lot of money and a lot of the off-field headache and potential, I suppose, legal fees by not doing this. And so the question of what do you do now that you have done this? And he has 3 guaranteed years at again $10 million a year. It's a question for not merely the athletics department, of course, but for a university and their board of trustees that was once regarded, I would say, as one of the finest public institutions in the American educational, higher
absolutely.
educational system. And now it is, I would say, having its image dictated by Jordan Hudson.
Indeed, indeed. Well, it will be interesting to see when and if that lawsuit comes. Sometimes, people are known to threaten lawsuits, like a guy in the
Uh,
White House, like threatens a lot of lawsuits, doesn't necessarily file them. Um,
I will say on that front, I genuinely look forward to whatever comes next. And anybody who wants to reach out to me knows how to reach me. I'm not exactly hiding. And yeah, let's put it this way also. I look forward to covering this story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let's switch topics, but boy, are you in the news a lot. Riley Gaines. If people have been living under a rock, explain who Riley Gaines is and how Riley Gaines became this kind of weird icon on the right for reasons that have to do with not so much Riley Gaines, but with the ideology of the far right. And then what complication is developed on the swim team that Riley swam with that is deeply, deeply disturbing and should be of more concern, frankly, than someone's gender identity.
Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity to answer the question posed as such, because who is Riley Gaines is, I think, a question that has not been asked nearly enough. And so on my show, in collaboration with Mother Jones and Madison Pauly, who's one of the great reporters over there, and this is also a project with the Center for Investigative Reporting, we sought to profile Riley Gaines, who you may recall, if you are familiar with how Donald Trump has used sports and the internet, you may recall her as the face, the professional face and voice of women who have claimed to be not just disadvantaged by trans athletes who they competed against, but victimized by them. And so Riley Gaines was a University of Kentucky swimmer who, at the NCAA finals 4 years ago, tied for fifth with Leah Thomas. And I say that not to diminish fifth place. I say that merely to say that if Leah Thomas
Yes.
was never in the contest, Riley Gaines would have had the exact same time and finished in the exact same place. So she did not lose to Leah Thomas. She tied for fifth place with Leah Thomas. And the reason that's all important is because when you profile Riley Gaines and you talk to the people who swam on the team at Kentucky with her, and you talk to the people around her, and you listen to the tape, frankly, of her being interviewed at the time of that race, which has become, by the way, that race has become this truly, as you put it, iconic event in the history of, frankly, transgender rights in America, because that was this big turning point that everybody cites now as for why we can't have trans athletes competing in women's sports. When you actually see what she said over time, you notice something fascinating. She does not start off saying that Leah Thomas is a predator who is guilty of something quite like sexual assault because she was competing against, as she puts it, biological women in swimming. The language, the rhetoric along those lines is actually non existent. But over time, as you watch and listen to the tape, and as you watch and listen to the interviewers, whether it's the Daily Wire and then Outkick and then Fox News and Tucker Carlson, as you see her being guided through the meat processing plant of conservative and really MAGA Trump rhetoric, you see her go from not actually blaming Leah Thomas, which she does not. At first, she blames the NCAA and the rules. She goes out of her way to clarify she does not blame Leah Thomas, to legitimately referring to Leah Thomas as a predator and referring to her own experience as something akin to an assault. And so, Jen, this is simply on the basis of the facts, the evolution for a cause that, frankly, was in search of a victim. Because, as I've said to you before, there are not a lot of trans athletes. There are, in fact, less than 10, according to the president of the NCAA at last check, right? Less than 0.02%. So the question
Yes.
of how do we make sports a winning political 80-20 issue, as the Trump Republican Party always says, well, you need to win the storytelling contest. And the way to
Yes.
win the storytelling contest is to get a victim. But what happens if the victim that you have identified, who otherwise looks like central casting in Riley Gaines, didn't actually lose to the trans athlete? Well, you have to generate something like the narrative of harm. And so over and over again, you see the escalation, the equivalence to competing with a trans athlete, having to share a locker room. By the way, a locker room that, according to other swimmers at the time, was not a place where Leah Thomas was exposing herself, but merely one where she was like changing with a towel, facing away, as if,
Yes.
as if maybe Leah Thomas was aware that this was something that some people were not comfortable with. And I'm not here to tell anybody to be comfortable with the trans athlete experience in general. I'm merely trying to tell the story now, going on, and I appreciate your indulgence here, going on and on about the way in which the story had evolved to turn the
Exactly.
trans athlete into a predator, which has, of course, Jen, not just political impacts, but impacts upon the human rights of a very, very vulnerable population that is being slandered by a political party.
And to be clear, there was no physical assault. There was
No.
no behavior that in any way can be described as harassment or assault. But there was something else going on that swim team, and that's where irony is too weak a word, I think. Explain that part of the story.
Yeah, so no allegations of anything like abuse or predation against Leah Thomas. But the story that we told was told through the voice and the eyes of Riley Gaines' former teammate in the University of Kentucky. And what they point out with no ambiguity is that there was, in fact, a massive problem with quote unquote a man in women's spaces. Except the man in this case was the head coach of their swimming team, a man by the name of Lars Jorgensen. And Lars Jorgensen was the head coach of the Kentucky swimming team. Lars Jorgensen, according to Riley Gaines' own book, was one of her best friends, the man who recruited her, a mentor to Riley Gaines. And Lars Jorgensen, Coach Lars, has also been accused of rape by multiple of Riley Gaines' own teammates. And so when you think about what deserves our attention here when it comes to male predators in women's sports, the truly cruel, and you put it well, it's not irony, but it is nightmarishly poetic that the person who became the face of casting the trans athlete as the predator was, except for one single tweet that she sent, totally silent about the coach who was allegedly raping her teammates. And that to me says almost everything. And it says almost everything because that is what Riley's teammates told us, that
Yes.
they could not take anymore listening to her be the face of women's rights in sports while she was simultaneously remaining almost silent about the actual thing that had happened to them. And so I I don't know if there's a cleaner sort of way to illustrate there is a
Right.
fake problem that Donald Trump is using to win elections, and he's doing it at the risk of truly stripping the rights and the safety from trans people.
Right.
Meanwhile, the actual men have been right there the whole time, and none of these anti-trans activists seem to be sparing any oxygen for that problem.
Now, to be clear, what is the status of the allegation of her teammates? Is he still there? Is he still coaching? Where is that all now?
Yeah, Lars Jorgensen has been banned for life as a swimming coach, and those cases are still working their way through the system. They are allegations, and I want to be clear about that too. But University of Kentucky has said he is no longer welcome. Swimming as an institution has said he is no longer welcome. In fact, his team outside of those allegations has also been beset by other problems involving allegations of, frankly, a climate on the team because of the coaches, as well as another assistant coach, that have resulted in eating disorders, in mental health problems by these girls, by these now women who were swimmers, because they were subjected to, they say, a culture that was, and I don't like the word toxic because it's not specific, but now I think you get what I mean when I use it at this point in my explanation. They say it was a toxic environment that damaged all of them permanently. And from that perspective, it's not merely the story of alleged rapes. It is also the story of what men are allowed to get away with because they're not politically useful as a
Right.
boogeyman. That I think is the real experiment that we've been seeing and
Right.
living in real time.
And I can't but help think of the major scandal that is now eating away at the presidency, and that is the Epstein scandal. That somehow the notion of pedophilia and child rape became a thing in the MAGA world right up until the point where Donald Trump was faced with the prospect that Jeffrey Epstein's files were going to be released. To be clear, no one has provided any proof that Donald Trump had sex with an underage person. What we do know is he was very close with Jeffrey Epstein. He was there at the house, and according to some emails, spent extensive time with one of the victims. We're going to find out more. But what we choose to worry about and which women get our attention really is a topic that needs further discussion. And as always, sports is right there.
Yeah, what did you know and when did you know it is a question that I think lots of the characters we've mentioned already. Um,
Exactly.
that's what I want to know from them because
Oh,
what they have
absolutely.
not said, even more so than what they have said, I could argue has been frankly responsible for some lasting change in American life that they don't seem to consider worthwhile in terms of our
Exactly.
attention, and I firmly disagree.
Exactly. Well, we now come to a story in which I don't think there are any good people involved in. Everyone is a bad guy. You know, there's such thing as like an anti-hero movie, but usually there's
Yeah.
one character who you find sympathy for. This one I'm really hard pressed. By now, most of the contrarians have heard of Olivia Nuzi. She was a reporter, still apparently has her career fully intact, who had a relationship with RFK Jr. while she was a reporter and, in fact, reported. Um, that was bad enough. She was asked to leave, or she chose to leave, depending upon your point of view. She did not lose her standing in the journalistic world. She said she was exiled. She was exiled to Los Angeles, people, not exactly, Devil's Island out there in the middle of, nowhere. And she got a plum job for Variety Fair. And then Pablo, take it from there. What happens when another journalist who was involved with her enters the scene?
Oh boy.
I know, I know.
How does one summarize Ryan Liz's Substack in so little time we have allotted? How do we get to me discovering the fact that Olivia Nuzi also had a career as an aspiring musician and pop star and published a song which we unearthed on my show, Pablo Torre Finds Out. And the song's title, of course, and this is with some degree of self-awareness, but clearly not enough. The song's title was Jailbait, and it was about how she was I won't even try to summarize the lyrics. I encourage you to go and listen to it. We pulled an excerpt of it for my show. It is a lot. But it is the story of somebody who realized, and by the way, I am not immune to the sort of like the school of thought here, right? Which is in modern media, one must become the story. And I understand, of course, like part of doing journalism in 2025 as an independent, especially, is you are there to be part of this too, a character unto yourself. What has happened, though, with her is that she has taken what seems to be, on some level, a theory as to what's different about the new journalism, right? Not Joan Didion, but the next evolution of it, in which the author is a character, into flagrantly breaking the most basic cardinal rules of what it is to do journalism, and especially political journalism, in which you are, according to Ryan Lizza's Substack, I will now spoil it for those who are not already reading it. Um, you are also alleged to have been in an affair with another presidential candidate previously, this time, of course, Mark Sanford, which is just what a twist. What a sort of plot twist to get
Exactly.
yet
And
another
on
person.
that, she was outed by another journalist with whom she was involved at least one time. And the purpose of outing her is not clear. It's not clear that he was all that concerned. And we're talking about Brian Lizzo, of course, about journalistic ethics. We don't know whether exactly what the motive was. Was this
Mm.
revenge? Was this a newfound appreciation for sunshine being the disinfectant of all things? We don't really know. But I think it gets back to the kind of fundamental through line in all of this is that people have to still be responsible. People have to be decent. People have to be um, understand that they not exploit the roles that they're in. And they also have to understand that they're setting an example for others, whether it's Riley Gaines becoming this icon that then sets the mob on really a handful of people, or it's Olivia Nuzi re-airing this myth and this cudgel that is used against women journalists that you get where you are by sleeping your way into the job. There's an absence of moral center, moral core, understanding and appreciation for others. It's really kind of the basics of like what you learn in grade school. You're supposed to learn in grade school or even before that at home.
Yeah, look, it's one thing. I mean, part of me is reluctant to even have an expansive conversation around the ethics of what is okay with a source, because
Yeah.
she's just clearly blown past whatever
All stop
nuance
signs. Yes.
whatever nuance you might want to argue in terms of like, can you be friendly with a source? Well, like, let's have a conversation about what that means. Sure. But
Right.
this is just so obviously, I think, just damaging to both journalists and, as you put it, and talking to my friends who, of course, work in journalism and are women. This is something that, in fact, Olivia Nuzi had previously tweeted about. She retweeted or sent out an article saying, like, why the title, I believe, was something along the lines of, why do all of these like Hollywood directors think female journalists sleep with their sources? And of course, you look back at that now, and you're like, what are we even? What movie are we living in? Where someone seems to be totally aware of what they should not be doing and then doing it, and also has this sort of like now paper trail dating back to her youth, where she's trying to be this sort of like mockery of the premise of whatever it means to be a journalist. It's wild. It's wild, and part of me feels uncomfortable, of course, by it because it's all so deeply personal. But at the same time, I think the through line in all of these stories, Jen, that we've talked about has been um, when you decide to be a public figure, how do you decide to live in public? What do you do? How do you comport yourself? What decisions do you make?
Exactly.
And I think we are at a point in each of these stories where you are going to be held to an account by virtue of what you yourself decide to put out into the world. And that is, I think, what's happening now too.
And I think lurking in the background, as he always is Donald Trump, who is the worst behaved human on the planet, who is the most boorish, amoral figure one could ever imagine. And I do think that something has happened in the Trump years that gives people the idea that all bets are off. You can say whatever you want. You can be as much of a jerk as you want to be. And, lo and behold, all right, he got to the White House. Not that he's doing great there. But you know what? People still do care about the rules. Your behavior does have consequences. And we come back to this all the time in sports. There are consequences. You win, you lose, you have a foul, you get thrown out of a game. Um, it's cause and effect. It's behavior and consequences, which we'd like to think exist in the real world too, right?
Hmm. I would like to think that. I would like to
Yes,
think that. Yeah, I would
yes.
like to think that at some point shame is a guardrail on behavior, and yet every
Right.
time you look up, you realize that, as I'm fond of saying, unfortunately these days, shamelessness is a market inefficiency, and so we're watching people profit off of that very principle.
Exactly, exactly. Well, on this Thanksgiving week, am thankful for all the athletes who play by the rules. I am thankful for all the gentlemen and the gentlewomen out there who show class, who conduct themselves well, who are a credit to their sports, to their communities, and there are lots of them. Unfortunately, that is the nature of the beast, folks. We tend not to say, dog bit man. We tend to do the man bit the
Yeah,
dog story. And sometimes we forget how many decent, good people are out there in sports. But Pablo, who is one guy who knows something about journalistic ethics, who actually checks facts. And that's why we love having you. You actually do your homework. You actually try to get the other side of things. And
I
that's
try.
refreshing.
I
That's
try.
refreshing.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoy your sports-filled Thanksgiving weekend. It is one of the great weekends, the great American traditions of football, 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 and more football, and some other sports as well. So enjoy, and folks, anything can happen. Look at Dallas. Who would have thought
I
coming
know, I
from
know. What
21
is that?
points back? Oh my goodness.
Eating the
That sums
Eagles.
up the
Ugh.
football season this season, doesn't
Yes.
it? Like there are no great teams anymore
It's a
because
mashed
everyone is screwing
potatoes.
up.
The standings are a mediocre mashed potatoes, and
Exactly.
unfortunately, we're gonna eat all of it. So yeah,
Yes,
there's that.
exactly. Exactly. Well, happy Thanksgiving, Pablo, and we will see you back next week. Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving, Jen. Take care.